my co-host, we are recording this evening, but do not worry, because we're on our webinar function, the only people that will be recorded will be myself and Amy, so you can relax. You don't have to worry about what your camera is showing. Just chill out and listen to the webinar content. And that's another good point, in that because it's being recorded, if you need to leave at any point this evening, then you can catch up. We will be posting the webinar recording on both our social media channels, and it may be disseminated further than that. So you're in good hands. So as I say, my name's Emily. I'm joined by my co-host Amy, and we will tell you all about who we are and what we actually do in a moment. So the structure of the evening we'll start off. Amy's going to give a presentation about herself, what she does at Another Way, and then I will give my presentation about me and what I do at Beach Guardian. Then Amy and I have some questions we'd like to ask each other about our journey into marine biology, some of the issues that we've perhaps come across and how we've overcome these issues. And then towards the end, we will open up the floor for questions from the audience, and then I will give you the answer to the riddle. So, and throughout the presentations and throughout the evening, please do put any questions that you have in the Q&A function, and we will get to those at the end of the evening. So I think all that's left to say is over to you, Amy, for your presentation.
Thanks so much, Emily, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So as Emily said, I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Another Way and what I do. So I'm Amy Bray. I am, this is a bit out of date. I'm now 18 years old, and I moved to the Lake District in 2016, where I founded Another Way. So I founded Another Way in 2019 after a few years of campaigning about marine conservation. So when I was about 12 years old, I read this book by Callum Roberts called The Ocean of Life. And it was all about the threats that our oceans are facing, from microplastic pollution to ocean acidification and invasive species. And it made me really worried that what I wanted to study in the future wouldn't be there when I grew up to do so. So from then on, I decided that I had to do something about that, and I had to go into marine conservation. So I started by emailing my MPs, by campaigning, by writing letters. And then I realized that actually, while I was asking the government to put taxes on plastic bags, I was actually using a vast amount of quantity of plastics in my everyday life, from the toothbrush that I brush my teeth with in the morning, to the shampoo bottles that I used, to the plastic that my vegetables came in. So I challenged my family to go plastic free. And that was a really difficult experience, but it was actually really life-changing, because it opened my eyes to the power that we have as individuals to change our world and to change our lifestyles. And it triggered an eye-opening insight into all aspects of our lifestyles, from my diet to my clothing to how I traveled. And then I wanted to share that experience with others. So I set up a marine conservation campaign called Devotion to Ocean at my school, and on Instagram. So I was posting ideas of what I was doing in my everyday life to help other people do the same. And I also gave talks, and I ran a little plastic-free shop in my school. And then I created an awareness campaign and an interactive awareness session that I took into schools and community groups all around my home county of Cumbria. We would do interactive sessions like making albatross, life-size albatross out of newspaper, and making our own homemade glue to do that with. And we would bring in a load of plastic and play games that illustrate how plastics biomagnify up the food chain. So that was really popular, and I went and did more and more talks, and eventually I formalized that into my charity Another Way. And here I am at Exeter University studying marine biology, which has always been my dream. So I founded Another Way because I believe that I want to inspire individuals to make a difference, not to wait for someone else to fix our future for us, but to take it into their own hands, because we don't have to accept the way things happen now. If forests are being cut down at a rate of 50 football fields a minute, if much of the world is on fire, if UK villages are experiencing frequent droughts and floods, we obviously have to find another way to live. And that is the equal responsibility of all of us, no matter our age, gender, faith, or ethnicity. Our home unites us. Now, I find this graph both scary and hopeful because it shows our global energy use and how it's grown exponentially from around the 1950s. But for me, this shows that we can solve this problem as individuals, because this energy use is the energy that we use as individuals, from what we eat to what we wear to how we travel. And so that means that we have the power to turn this graph around. We have the power to change how we live our lives, to change our energy use, and to start curbing our environmental destruction. And of course, you've seen the photos of wildfires ravaging the globe. This is the first glacier in Iceland that's been officially lost to climate change. And our oceans are experiencing this worse than perhaps any other ecosystem on our planet, with coral reefs bleaching and with plastic pollution reaching to even the depths of the Mariana Trench down there in the bottom corner. And I think people often think of climate change as a very much foreign issue of the future, but it's actually very much right here and right now. And we see that with the frequent floods that have devastated the UK in recent years. Up in Cumbria, in my home, we've had severe flooding events on consecutive weekends over the last few winters. And I think that more widely, we waste our time, we waste our money, we waste our food, we waste our clothes. We need to stop wasting and start concentrating on what's important to us. So here are a few things that you can do in your life. We can boycott palm oil and processed foods. We can reduce and compost food waste. We can refuse single-use packaging, bringing your own containers to refill shops, bringing your own bags and choosing only what's loose in supermarkets or in greengrocers, and supporting local, small, independent businesses. We can avoid eating too much fish and research species that are sustainable, of which there aren't very many, unfortunately. We can eat more plant-based foods. Animal agriculture is one of the main issues threatening our planet. But we can also farm in a way that's regenerative and really beneficial for our soils. So supporting local farmers who are trying to do a good thing is a great way to improve your environmental footprint. We can buy less stuff. Unfortunately, we're just buying too much stuff all the time. But choosing secondhand items from eBay or buying your clothes from Depop is a great way to reduce your carbon footprint. We can plant trees, donate to reforestation projects. That's perhaps the best way that you can spend your money if you want to donate to solving our climate crisis. And using a Cozier as a search engine is a really great way to reduce your carbon footprint. Flying abroad is one of the most harmful things that we can do for our planet in terms of carbon emissions. So taking the train or the bus or having local holidays is a really great way to reduce that. This is a really interesting infographic from Mike Berners-Lee's book, There Is No Planet B. It shows the amount of travel miles that we can get from 1 square metre of land. So if we were to plant that square metre of land with grass or wheat, convert that into biofuel and use that to power a conventional car, we would get 5 miles on that energy. If we were to take that wheat on that square mile of land and square metre of land and turn it into bread, eat it and then ride a bike, we could go 25 miles on that energy. Now, if we were to take that square metre of land and cover it in solar panels, convert that into electricity and power an electric car, we could go a whopping 1,000 miles on that energy. So a huge, huge leap in efficiency from a bike. But if we were to use that electricity to power an electric bike, then we could go 21,000 miles. So I think this is really interesting. The efficiency that we can gain from using an electric bike instead of a conventional bike is really, really interesting. But that's just a really useful infographic to help with your travel choices. So we can invest in renewables, in electric vehicles and energy saving technology, which will hopefully become much more cheaper and readily available in the future. And we can buy local and seasonal food. So what is another way and what do we do? Well, one of our main projects is tree planting. So over the last couple of years, we've planted 10,000 trees in the valley in which I live in Cumbria, called Matterdale. And we've partnered with some great organisations. So we've partnered with the Tree Council and Ullswater Catchment Management CIC to plant these trees. They're all native trees, and we planted them with school children and farmers and conservationists and local people who are going to be able to watch these trees flourish and bring back a load of biodiversity to our valley. We've also got 2 zero waste shops, one in Penrith and one in Kendal. All the profits from these shops go into the charity, so helping continue this cycle of education, awareness and change. So people can bring their containers to these shops, fill up with as much of the goods as they want. We have loads of food products, dried food products, herbs, spices, pasta, that kind of thing, and loads of toiletries too. And Zoe here in the middle here is our manager for those shops. And just next week, we're moving to a bigger premises in Kendal, which is really exciting for us. So in normal times, I would usually be going out to schools all across the country to give awareness sessions. Unfortunately, I can't do that in person, but I can give talks online like I'm doing now, which is really exciting because it can help me give our message all across the globe. And this is our patron, Dr. Alan Jamieson. He's at Newcastle University, and he is a deep sea biologist who's found plastic at the deepest points of every ocean on Earth. Now, in 2019, we had our official launch, Another Wainwright Day, and we got 50 organisations and over 600 people to climb each of the Wainwright Mountains in the Lake District in support of our message that everyone can make a difference and everyone can start right now. So here are just a few photos of people doing amazing activities up all these mountains in support of Another Way. And one of our latest projects, which is really exciting for us, is the Another Way Ambassador platform. We really hope that if you're a student, you'll think about signing up to this, because this is a platform for students across the world to unite together. We've got loads of resources, which you can see here, that people have compiled, students and teachers from around the world, things that they've done in their own schools and communities, from talks to event ideas to fundraising ideas to letters to your head teacher. We've got loads and loads of resources, and we hope that like-minded, passionate people can share their experiences here. We've got a forum as well, so everyone can talk to each other. So sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, but the world's alarm bell is ringing and you have a choice. You can bury your head in your pillow and ignore it, or you can get up and throw yourself into the day. If one person was to spread a message to 10 people in one day, and the next day those 10 people were to each spread that message to 10 more, then it would only take 10 days for the whole world to have been educated. So remember, you are never small and insignificant. For every plastic bottle that finds its way into the stomach of a whale, for every centimetre of sea level rise, for every acre of rainforest that is cut down, do twice as much good, do 20 times as much good. And if we all do that every day of our lives, then maybe we can find another way to live. Thank you so much for listening, and please do follow and support Another Ways project and spread our message. You can find out more on our website. You can also follow us on social media, and we'd love to have you involved in the future. Together, we can find another way. And now I'm going to pass over to Emily to hear all about Beach Guardians. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Amy, that was so inspiring. Every time I've heard you talk, or just even in our little meetings in preparation for the webinar this evening, you are just so captivating, and your passion, literally, when you first said we can find another way, literal chills. I was like, oh, that's a good name. And also what I realized earlier when I was making an Instagram video was when I was like, Amy Bray from Another Way, and I was like, oh, that sounds so good. Emily from Beach Guardian does not sound as good as Amy Bray from Another Way, but I can't change either of those things now. So thank you so much. That was, I can't believe about the bike. I've been telling my mum for so long that we should get an electric bike, and that is literally going to be my selling point. So thank you. Great. So I guess it's my turn now. What a tough act to follow though. So thanks, Amy, so much for that.
Over to you.
Thank you. So as I briefly said at the beginning, my name is Emily Stevenson, and I'm the co-founder of Beach Guardian. And what I'd like to do this evening is just briefly kind of explain what we actually do at Beach Guardian, and what our key goal is. Now, to do this, I try and channel my inner weather woman. I'm trying this new thing where I have a bit of a phobia of PowerPoint. So instead of using slides, I try and use a virtual background. Sometimes it works, sometimes it really doesn't, especially if I'm trying to show things. So you may need to bear with me, but hopefully my weather woman is now fully
It's fully activated.
There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so thank you, Amy. So Beach Guardian, what do we actually do? Well, Beach Guardian is a community interest company based in North Cornwall, and it was co-founded by myself and my dad in 2017. And really, it's just born out of a passion for the planet. But the key goal of Beach Guardian is to empower communities to tackle plastic waste. And what we do at Beach Guardian can be divided into 5 core areas, if you like, and you can see them on the screen now. So that is community, so working with people. I heard this fantastic quote the other day by Jax at Cornwall Wildlife Trust, and she said, you know, people assume that conservation is about wildlife, but actually conservation is about people and working with people to save the planet. And that's what we really try and do at Beach Guardian, is to get face to face or screen to screen with people and just talk about the planet and try our best to protect it. So we also work in education. Like Amy, we try and go into schools, obviously a bit of a curveball with lockdowns, but we, like Amy, we've been able to get online and virtually deliver some content. We aimed to, by this point, have got into every single school, primary school in Cornwall. Unfortunately, we're at half due to the lockdown, but hopefully we can hit the ground running when it all opens back up again. And the education is really important for us at Beach Guardian and other environmental organisations. Of course, working with the next generation is going to be our greatest ally in protecting the environment. And then we work with businesses to help them reduce their reliance on plastics. So we heard this fantastic analogy a few years ago, which was, if you've got a leaky sink in your bathroom, you wouldn't spend year after year mopping up the floor. You'd fix the tap. We can spend years and years and years and years doing beach cleans and mopping up the floor of the plastic waste issue, but it will just be endless if we do not turn off the plastic tap. So by working with businesses, we hope that we can stop it at the source. And we've had some fantastic collaborations, one of which I will explain later on in my presentation. But we've had the absolute privilege to work with many Cornish organisations and international organisations. And what I love about the plastic pollution issue is that because plastic is in all of our lives. It's literally reached every corner of the globe. There is something that everybody can do to tackle it. It doesn't matter, you know, the other day I had a email come through, a watch company wanted to do something about plastic waste. Well, what can we do? What can they do to kind of reduce their reliance? Well, now they've generated a watch strap made out of sails from old sailing boats. So there's always something that somebody can do to reduce their reliance on plastics and to do something to protect wildlife and the planet. And then research, what's really key for us at Beach Guardian is to do everything from an evidence-based approach. So I've been really fortunate to study my marine biology degree at the University of Plymouth and then go on to study my master's degree currently at the University of Exeter. And through my master's, I've been doing a research project with Dr. Amy Bray and Professor Angus Buckling, looking at the role of microplastics in the spread of potentially pathogenic or antibiotic resistant bacteria. So hopefully there's going to be some interesting stuff about that on our Facebook page sometime soon. And then, of course, collaboration. And I suppose that is really what brings me here tonight, in that at Beach Guardian, we know that we cannot solve this issue on our own, and we will always work with as many different people as we possibly can. And working with Amy, it has been incredibly inspiring, and she really does inspire me with everything that she does. So from a selfish point of view, it's great to collaborate with people because they inspire you to do better. But also, our voices are going to be louder if we speak together. So my key passion and goal in life is only going to be achieved if I work with other people to achieve it. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Beach Guardian does. But what does that actually kind of look like in the real world? What do we actually kind of do day to day? What is the day of a Beach Guardian? So one of the key things that we do, I suppose the backbone of Beach Guardian, is the beach cleaning. See, this is where the weather woman doesn't always work. So I have to, there we are. So we do a lot of beach cleans, and this is really how Beach Guardian started, just from a community desire, empowerment, force to get out there and take responsibility for our local environment. And I mean, every group pretty much does beach cleans, but what we like to do, which we think is perhaps a little bit different, is that after we've done a beach clean, we keep everything. And for the last going on 4 years now, we have kept everything that we've collected on beach cleans. And you know, we only do beach cleans on a 10-mile stretch of the North Cornwall coastline, and we've only been doing it for the last 4 years. But to give you an idea of the kind of scale of what we're finding, this picture was taken about 2 years ago now of our collection. It is now significantly greater than this. It's like a mountain of waste, which is a great resource in itself, because obviously the shock factor, you think, oh my goodness, look how much is there. And remember, this has only been in the last 4 years. This is only from a 10-mile stretch of Cornwall. When you scale that up to the rest of the world, and bear in mind that what's washing up on our beaches is a mere 1% of what's really out there in the ocean, you can begin to understand the problem that we're facing. But actually what I see from these pictures is hope, in that yes, this amount of plastic was in the environment, but equally look at what a community that's empowered and united can achieve. And that's what we like to harness with Beach Guardian. And yes, it's great having this big pile of rubbish, but what are we actually going to do with it? I mean, yes, I love it, and I'm getting a bit of a hoarder's obsession with it, but we need to actually find sustainable ways of actually using this waste that we're collecting. And this leads me on to one of my favorite stories so far with Beach Guardian. So these lovely ladies that you see on the screen here are members of our local WI group. And this story perfectly kind of highlights how there is really something for everybody in the community to do to get involved with plastic awareness, plastic campaigning and that kind of thing. So the local WI ladies said to us, look, we've seen what you're doing with the beach cleans. We'd really like to help, but some of us have maybe accessibility issues. We're not able to kind of clamber along the rocks like some of the younger people that perhaps join your beach cleans. What could we do that really helps you but isn't necessarily beach cleaning? So we sat down and I was like, well, what do you like to do? And they're like, well, we do like our coffee mornings. So, okay, what can we do that's similar to a coffee morning? And they came up with a knot and natter coffee morning. So what we do is we take them a big dump of ghost fishing gear that we found on beaches, and it's all tangled up and absolutely dreadful stuff. And we basically give it to them and then come back 4 hours later, and they have perfectly unraveled it and recoiled it into perfect little coils. And you can see here, these ladies are wrapping ghost fishing gear around a chair in order to untangle it. It sounds a little bit slave labour-y, but I promise it's therapeutic. It's, you know, they sit down, they have a chat, they have a coffee, they're targeting isolation and bringing each other together whilst keeping their hands busy for a good cause. I think it's like the reverse of knitting almost. And I did actually join them one day and it was really good fun. And yes, okay, this is a lovely story, but what are we actually going to use lovely coiled ropes for? Well, this leads on to the next kind of leg in our kind of our remit of what we do in the education, is that we're then able to take these coiled, lovely coiled bits of rope into schools, and then the children can make lovely things that they can be proud of, reinforcing that circular economy. So here we've got a lovely snail that somebody made out of that lovely rope that the ladies at the WI were kind of uncoiling and recoiling for us. So that's such a powerful message, in that a community came together, took plastic off the beach, gave it to another community group, it went into a school in the community, and then that child is empowered and they've taken something that was waste and discarded and unwanted and turned it into something that they're proud of. And then they can use that to spread awareness. They can show their friends and family, and it goes on and on and on. And that is exactly what we want to do at Beach Guardian. That is kind of the whole model of what we aim to do, is bring everybody together, united over one issue. So that's kind of the community engagement and education side of things. And the other thing was business. And the reason that I want to talk about this next engagement we had was because it leads me on to one of the biggest challenges that I've faced. So one of the largest organizations we've worked with is PepsiCo. Now, if you don't know who PepsiCo are, you may recognize some of the brands that they own: Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Tropicana, Walker's, Starbucks. They're massive. They are the second biggest food and drink manufacturer on the planet. They're also the second most plastic polluting organization on the planet. So a big player in this game I find myself in. So if you know me at all, you'll know that I'm obsessed with crisp packets. It really has become an obsession. I can't play it off as a collection anymore. It is an obsession. I have 4 folders full of crisp packets that I found on beach cleans. Now, the reason that I have I do have a big obsession with them is because when you find these crisp packets, as you'll know, they have a use by date on the back of them. So for example, here's one that was found recently, a Walker's crisp packet, salt and Lineker. Nice one, Walker's. And on the back, the use by date is 1997, which makes this crisp packet the same age as me. And it is perfectly intact. Here you can see the Weather Woman doesn't really work with this, but you can tell that this packet is essentially as strong as the day that it was made. The color hasn't faded. And this is the very problem with plastic that we have, is the durability and longevity of this material. Anything that gets littered today will still be here when my grandchildren have grandchildren, and a whole lot longer than that. So I wanted to send a message to PepsiCo that though I appreciate finding these packets every so often, it was unacceptable that these 50-year-old packets, you know, the oldest packet I found is from 1966. That was the year my mum was born. Sorry, mum. But it's just outrageous that these packets have been polluting the environment for decades and nobody was talking about it. So I wanted to send a message to walkers. And to do this, I knew I needed to do something really big to get their attention. So I decided for my graduation from Plymouth University for my marine biology degree, I would wear this dress that I made out of crisp packets. And it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Walkers knew who I was. So they said to me, Emily, fine. By the year 2025, we will make 100% of our packaging recyclable, compostable, or biodegradable. So I said, okay, walkers, great. By then, you'll have produced 28 billion more packets of crisps. You need to do something in the meantime to stop those packets ending up on our beaches. So I had some fantastic opportunities to go live on Sky News, BBC, and they said to me, okay, Emily, you've done what any conservationist can do. You've highlighted a problem, but what is the solution? So I said, okay, fine. There's already an organisation called TerraCycle. They can recycle crisp packets. All walkers need to do is team up with them, offer a collection scheme where people can collect crisp packets and then send them off to be recycled. I threw them a lifeline. I told them what I thought they should do. Well, lo and behold, a week later, this was in the headlines. Walker's crisp packets recycling scheme announced. And then a month later, Walker's launches recycling scheme after storm over crisp packets. And now anywhere in the UK, you can collect and recycle crisp packets. Now, the reason that I tell you this, yes, I'm really proud of the scheme and what's happened, is because I want to leave you with an empowering message of something that I really struggled with throughout this whole experience. And that was when I was going to have this fantastic opportunity on the news. Somebody said to me, people want to see you on the telly because you're a young, nice woman. And I'm sure they meant that perfectly as a compliment, a harmless compliment. But what I heard instead was it didn't matter that I'd studied 3 years for a marine biology degree. It didn't matter that I'd just started or was going to start my master's. It didn't matter that I had given everything to this, all of my passion, my whole life. And I've spent hours and long nights researching plastic to the nth degree. It does not matter how much of myself I give to this, because all I will ever be seen for is a woman. And they could not see past that. But then I thought, well, do you know what? If you're going to see me as a woman, then I will make sure you see me for exactly what I want you to see me for. And that's when I knew I had to make the dress, and now I'm hopefully going to make something else, but I won't tell you what because it's going to be a surprise. And I knew that what was special about me and what was special about this was myself. And I learned that to be successful, you have to be totally and unapologetically yourself. So that is my takeaway message, is that never be ashamed of who you are or what you represent. Be yourself, and it will serve you and your passion and your goals through everything. So I'm going to get rid of my weather woman theme now, and we will move on to the questions. So, Amy, I have a question for you. Let me just get rid of this thing. There we go, it's gone. So thank you so much for your whole presentation, and it was fantastic to get an insight into your journey. But I want to know what most inspired you to become a marine biologist.
So I know this is a bit cringy, and it's what a lot of people say, but I really have, for as long as I remember, always wanted to be a marine biologist. And I think since I was about 6, I've always just absolutely adored nature. I've loved spending time in the outdoors. I really enjoy science and answering questions. I feel that being kind of the forefront of research and asking questions that no one else understands is just so interesting. And that really inspires me. And I think that I kind of put that together with my love for water, my love for swimming, for the sea, and I put them together, and I came out with marine biology, and I've kind of stuck to it ever since. And as I said, when I read Callum Roberts' book, that kind of inspired me not only to be a marine biologist and ask questions, but to also be a conservationist and protect what we have as well, so that we can study it in the future. What about yourself? What would you say inspired you?
I think what inspired me to become a marine biologist was it's similar to what inspired me to want to tackle plastic pollution, and that is that the ocean just connects us all. Like plastic has reached all of our lives, the ocean touches all of our lives. And I think that is so special, that interconnectivity between people, communities, places. And what I really love about my job is that I get to remind people of that, or actually explain that to people, because I think a lot of people don't realize how our lives are so reliant on the ocean. So it's been an honor, a pleasure, amazing to show people the connection they have to the ocean and how they can protect it in their own lives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I grew up in the middle of the country, and I moved to the Lake District, which isn't near the ocean at all. But I think that even then I could feel how much the ocean meant to me, and how much we all rely on it. And I feel like it's just so great for mental health, for physical health. Just seeing the sea can just help people so much, and I think that that's why we've got to protect it, or at least one of the many reasons why we do.
I totally agree, and I think especially over the last year, people's reliance on nature, not just the ocean but green spaces. I hadn't heard yellow spaces before, but just being near the coast, people have this deep appreciation for nature now, and I think people are more aware that we need nature. Nature doesn't need us, but we need nature, and therefore we must protect it. So I totally agree. I have another question kind of following on from that. Well, actually, this is kind of, I love this question because you are such an inspiration to so many people, but I want to know who your inspirations are.
Thank you. Well, as are you. And I think that definitely one of my number one inspirations is Callum Roberts, and I am super excited because he actually joined the University of Exeter at the same time as me, and I found that out a couple of weeks into my term. And that's just been really exciting for me because he really started and opened my eyes to plastic pollution and to all the threats that our oceans face. I'd say my other is Sir David Attenborough, because I have adored all his documentaries, as I'm sure you have, all my life. And I also think just anyone who has pushed boundaries and who has faced challenges and achieving what they want to achieve. Because I think so many people out there, from whether it's because they're a minority, whether it's because they're a woman, whether it's because they just want to stand out a bit from the crowd, they face challenges, but people who have pushed through those to achieve them really inspire me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sir David, absolute legend.
Definitely, and I feel like he's just managed to capture the imaginations of so many people around the world to care, because I think you can't want to protect something unless you care about it and love it. And so instilling that love for something, that fascination for something, is just so critical, and he manages to do it so well.
I agree. Awesome. So that's kind of like the inspirational side of things, what inspired you to get to where you are now and who inspired you. But in terms of experience, what sort of experience do you think that helped you get to university?
So I think especially in marine biology, but in any kind of conservation career, it's just so important to get as much experience as you can. Don't you agree? Yeah, so I started researching kind of work experience and volunteering opportunities quite early on. I'd say about year 9. And I've been to I attended a couple of work experiences week at Plymouth University, actually, which was just really valuable in kind of getting to know the department and the type of research they do. I also did one at Newcastle University. We did a Rocky Shore research project. We got taught by the lecturers, so we got a bit of a feel for kind of university and the type of teaching. And then I also attended some Field Studies Councils courses. They're really great. They run those around the country, really inspiring. And then, of course, I did all my talks and set up a little plastic-free shop at school, and followed my own dreams. And I think that that's really important. If you've got an idea, if you've got something that you're passionate about, then follow them, get involved with other organizations, or start what you want to do. Did you get kind of similar experiences? What sort of things did you get involved with?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, well, so you didn't do a lot then. You literally, like, that's more than I did throughout my whole undergraduate degree. That's a lot of experience, and yeah, totally hats off to you. I think that for me, yes, I've always been so inspired and passionate about this. But actually, I didn't know how passionate I was about this until I watched the film A Plastic Ocean. And that literally kind of opened my eyes to this pollutant and how it had kind of infiltrated every area of our lives and was affecting our health, not just physical health, but mental health. So from that, I realized how valuable it was to kind of make sure that I researched this issue as much as I possibly could. I know I said at the start of my presentation how like going from an evidence-based approach is always kind of the best way forward. So I think the best kind of experience for me before, during, and after going to university was just reading and absorbing all the knowledge I possibly could, and going to all of the different talks and going to like other community groups when they had different meetings and that kind of thing. I would just take in as much kind of knowledge as you possibly can on a subject, because of course only when you know better can you do better, and once you have that knowledge you can give it to somebody else and then they can pass it on. So I would definitely say that, you know, gaining as much knowledge as you possibly can is really key.
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you mentioned A Plastic Ocean, because I felt certainly that there was a point a few years ago where a load of films came out. There was A Plastic Ocean, there was Blue Planet 2, and suddenly people realized that plastic was an issue, and they beach clean started happening. It was in the news. Do you feel that there was that point, that tipping point in terms of public awareness around plastics, and was that the point at which you were inspired as well?
I do think there was definitely a tipping point. I think, you know, when Blue Planet 2, that episode about plastic pollution, almost overnight the whole planet woke up to this issue. And I think what David Attenborough achieved must not be kind of underestimated, because like he brought this global issue into people's living rooms, and it was that kind of culture shift that we needed, because before that, when we were doing a beach clean, people would just ask us, you know, are you doing it for community service, or, you know, it's always viewed as a punishment. Like I remember being at school, and if you'd done something wrong, not that I ever did, but your punishment would be to walk around the playground litter picking. So I think having that culture shift from it being associated with being a punishment to actually being rewarding, a treasure hunt, something to get you outdoors, something to connect with people, to give back, I think was really, really important for so many people, and it made our job a whole lot easier.
Yes, no, I definitely agree with that. Now, one of the hardest things I found, and I deliberated over this for so many years, was choosing a university. And here I am at Exeter, and I am very thankful for my decision. But it took me a lot of deliberating to make that decision, and a lot of researching the departments, visiting the university, seeing the kind of research that goes on. How did you choose the University of Plymouth and then the University of Exeter for your master's degree?
I wish I could say that I mean, I did really research both universities. Plymouth was a funny one because my parents were so set on me going to Plymouth because it's so close to home. It's literally, on a good day, an hour away. So they really wanted me to go there. And I knew it was an incredible university, especially for marine biology. But I really wanted to go to Bangor University, just like literally the furthest away I could get from my hometown. And I went to Bangor, and literally it took 13 hours stuck in traffic. It was horrendous. And I literally went to Plymouth for an open day like the following week, and they were giving out free pasties. And I was like, this is the university for me. No, it wasn't just the pasties. That did have something to do with it. But also Plymouth offered the HSE professional dive course. The research coming out of Plymouth is just amazing. Obviously, Richard Thompson, the godfather of microplastics. So, you know, it's a fantastic university. In Exeter, again, fantastic university. The research coming out of it is absolutely phenomenal. You've got the Exeter Marine team at Brendan, absolute legends. Like, both universities, I am so grateful that I've been able to attend and gain so much, and that both of them are close to home, so that's enabled me to continue working with Beach Guardian. So lots of different reasons, not just the pasties. But was there anything that particularly sold Exeter to you? Did they give out pasties?
They did give out free pasties, yes,
it's
and
the
vegan
pasties.
ones too. So yeah, it must be the pasties. Certainly not close for me because it's a 10-hour train journey for me from the Lake District. But I think for me, I was really interested in the kind of research that was going on at Exeter. And I also just came here and I loved the location. I loved the atmosphere. I could really see myself here because of all the like-minded people. I remember 2 student ambassadors spoke at the open day about just being around people who cared. And for me, when I was at school, I just had no one around me who was really interested. Everyone kind of thought I was a bit crazy because I thought that we shouldn't be using plastic. And that really got me down for a while until I realized that not everyone was like that, and that I had my own path and that I was doing the right thing. So feeling like I have passionate, like-minded people around me is just so important, and it's something that I've really loved about coming to Exeter. So that was my decision. Yeah, I think it just makes such a difference. And actually, something that's been really exciting recently is I've got 6 students who are helping me currently, volunteering for us, doing some really great projects with us, and it's just been so lovely to work with people my age who also care and who are just so passionate. And that really inspires me every day.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think a lot of people forget about the importance of your peers and how they can influence your journey so much. Like, I know that both at Plymouth and at Exeter, my course mates and housemates and everybody I met at university literally shaped the experience that I got and who I am now. So it's really important to make sure you're surrounded by inspiring people and people that empower you to do better and to push yourself. I'm cautious of time and I want to move on to some of the audience questions, but I do have one more question that I want to kind of go over. We've spoken about the nice bits of university and why we wanted to go to university. I want to know how you found being a university student, because I think this is quite important for other prospective students, how you found being a university student during COVID.
I think for me it's been a real challenge, because it's my first year. I only started in September. I started pretty much in the middle of a lockdown. I've only had 3 in-person events, so there's not been much chance to meet my lecturers or my peers. And it has been really, really difficult from a kind of uncertainty point of view. Just not knowing whether I'll be at home, whether I'll be at university, whether I'll be able, to go home at the end of the term or to go and see my friends. It's really difficult. But at the same time, I think that it's enabled me to make perhaps longer lasting friendships, because we actually created a Facebook group as a course before we came, which I think was an amazing idea, because we got to know people before we got here. And I've had a lovely time with people out on the beach. I think being in Cornwall is a great pro, because we've got the beach and the sea right on our doorsteps. And I also think the lecturers have just done a great job in adapting to the circumstances, because I think all too often we just think about kind of ourselves and what we're getting, and it's all online, it's so rubbish. But actually the lecturers must have put in a huge amount of work putting all the content online, and still making it engaging. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And I think it will make us appreciate next year all the more.
Yeah, totally. And just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying about how the lecturers have put so much into kind of the university experience in such hard times, I would actually say that being a university I know it's different because I was a master's student and I'd already started, and lockdown kicked off when I was coming to the end of my master's. So, I mean, being a first year student would be very challenging. But for me, actually being a university student during the pandemic was the best thing I could have hoped for, because if I hadn't have been a student, I hadn't have been part of the university community, I would have gone into lockdown. I would have probably been working with Beach Guardian from home, and when lockdown kicked off, I wasn't able to go to the beach or anything like that. So I was literally would have just had my mum and the rest of my family to support me. Whereas with being part of the university, I had the entire university community as my support network, my supervisors, all of the lecturers. We had coffee breaks and pub quizzes and all sorts of virtual meetings that literally were so essential to my mental health and well-being during the pandemic. So it's been incredible. I owe a lot to the university, actually.
Yes, yes, I would echo that. Shall we finish with one last question between ourselves, and then we'll go on to all the lovely audience's questions. So what next for you? What are your hopes for the future, careers wise, Beach Guardians wise, and how can people get involved with those if they'd like to?
What next is an interesting one, because what I love about Beach Guardian is I never really know what's next. Like, our week, our days are just the most incredible opportunities come our way, the most incredible people, the most incredible stories and ideas. It's just an absolute pleasure, and it's literally everything I ever dreamed of, working as a marine biologist in the position that I am. I am so happy. I love what I do so much. And I love that one week is always totally different to the next week. So all that I can say for definite, because I have no idea what direction Beach Guardian's going in, is that we will continue to do everything we possibly can to work with as many people as possible. So finally get into all of the primary schools in Cornwall. We're going to be launching a whole new education programme, and finding other ways that we can work with different members of the community. How can people get involved? Beach Guardian Facebook page, all of the kind of Instagram, everything. You can find us at Beach Guardian. Send me a message and we can find ways for everybody to get involved. As I've already said, there are so many different ways for people to get on board the plastic pollution campaign, whether it be beach cleaning or anything else. There's always something for someone. So I love hearing from people. Just send me a message and we can find some stuff for people to do. How about you, Amy?
So I think obviously I'm only at the start of my degree, but I think I've loved hearing from people in all sorts of different careers in the marine biology sector. And I think that often people just think a marine biologist is a marine biologist, but what does that job actually mean? There are consultants, there are researchers, there are lecturers, there are creatives, and there are just so many different career paths. So I think for me, thinking about kind of what I'd like to do and getting experience in that sector is really important. Another way wise, we're just launching our 30 steps campaign. So we've got one for individuals and one for businesses. You can find those on our website, but they're both certifications that give you loads of advice on how you can be more sustainable. And our ambassador program for me is really exciting as well. So I'd just love for as many students as possible to sign up to that, so we can create this community of like-minded people. And as Emily said, collaborating is just so important in trying to fix our future and to reach our goals. So for me, that's something really close to my heart.
Yeah, I loved what you said there about, being a marine biologist doesn't have like a one size fits all kind of thing. And you and I were saying before we actually started the webinar is that our kind of perception of being a marine biologist always changes. Like, for example, when I was 9 years old and told everybody that I wanted to be a marine biologist, it was because I wanted to swim with dolphins and whales. And I just had this image of me on a white sandy beach in the Maldives, having the best life, studying turtles, when in actual fact, what I'd rather be doing now and what my research looks at is sewage communities. And I've gone from like a beautiful beach to actual poo, but I love it so much. And I think that is something so important, is that just because you might have a perception of what looks, what is good, what does good look like, you might think that the optimum marine biologist would be studying humpback whales, when actually once you find your niche and your passion and what you want to research, the world is your oyster. So cliche, but I never thought that my marine biologist role would be what it is now. And I love it. I really love it. So even if you're not studying dolphins, it doesn't mean you're not successful. It just means you found your niche. So if anything, that's more being successful.
I completely agree. Yeah, and my perception has changed very similarly, from dolphins and whales to gut microbiomes and statistics and all sorts. So yes, completely. Now, shall we answer some of these audience questions? We've got them rolling in.
Yes, please. I'm just trying to organise my screen, so I can't see them at the moment.
Okay, so I think the first question is for me. So regarding tree planting, so hi Amy, your tree planting sounds good, but many experts suggest natural regeneration of trees instead. Are you encouraging natural regeneration instead, or as well as planting trees? Yes, so I completely understand your point. Natural regeneration is obviously what we would all hope for. Unfortunately, it isn't often possible. So with land use at the rate it is in the UK at the moment, it's very difficult to let large areas of land regenerate themselves. And working with local farmers, often, they're very happy to section off and fence off a piece of land and plant a hedgerow or plant a little copse of trees. But just sectioning off a huge field is sometimes not possible, and just letting it do its thing, which obviously from an ecological point of view would probably be the best thing to do. However, there have been farmers who have done that and who have been open to that. So up in the Lake District, for example, we're a fell farming community, and the hill opposite me, they've let that completely natural regenerate. So we're waiting to see the results of that. From a climate change perspective, I feel that there's room for both and that we don't have that much time. So giving trees a little head start and planting them ourselves is probably necessary in the timescale that we've got.
Oh, a great answer. I didn't know any of that. So
Trees are something that I'm really passionate about, and I do completely get your point about all the mycorrhizal fungi and the community, because a forest is so much more than just trees. But yes, that's definitely something that we'd like to work on. Emily, I think this might be for you, this one. So do you know how the TerraCycle scheme could be more widespread? Do you know how to contact them? How can we create more collection points for eco bricks, which again have been a passion of mine, and how can we organise them to be sent abroad for use?
Great, so lots of questions there, and very happy to have a go at some of them. And Amy, feel free to kind of jump in. If you're passionate about eco bricks, you can absolutely go for it. I have quite a controversial view on eco bricks, so maybe we'll brush over. But the TerraCycle scheme, yes, so I think what's really unfortunate with the COVID-19 pandemic is that a lot of these schemes have had to be put on pause due to obviously the collection point areas were closed during lockdown. So I think they're starting to fire up some new initiatives and bring back old initiatives, obviously as lockdown restrictions kind of are lifted. One particularly interesting scheme is that they have a PPE recycling scheme in was it Ireland that you're based? Was it
Yes,
Ireland? Yeah, sorry. Oh, what's that brand of crisps? Oh, there's a brand of crisps that I think they have a scheme in Ireland. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, that's so annoying. Crisps are usually my forte, but I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But there is, oh, it's literally right there. There is, I think, a scheme. It's not the Walkers scheme. So I will find that information. If you ping me an email, emily@beachguardian.co.uk, then I will find that information for you. I'm sure there is a scheme in Ireland. But what I will say is that it's Tato. Thank you, Julie. It is Tato crisps. I think there's a recycling scheme for those. But what I will say about the crisp packet recycling scheme is that it very much is a plan B option. I don't think we should be putting more emphasis on this kind of solution. I think we should continue putting emphasis on stopping it at the source and actually changing the packaging. So as much as I think it's a great scheme, and 45 million crisp packets have been recycled so far, and it's giving people in their communities something to do to kind of contribute to the campaign, I don't think that it is like the golden solution. So actually I'm trying to work with PepsiCo and finding other ways and other solutions to find another way of doing it instead of just kind of recycling this hard to recycle packaging. So if there isn't a scheme in Ireland, I will talk to TerraCycle and find you some information. But what I'd rather do is make sure that we can work with organisations both in England and Ireland, across the world, in actually changing the packaging at the first kind of instance. Eco bricks, do you want to take that one?
Yes, okay. So yeah, I entirely echo Emily that we need to reduce the amount of plastic we use, but recycling is a good alternative in the meantime. But if there's anything you can do to reduce the amount of plastic you use, then do that first. Eco bricks wise, so yes, I'm not a complete advocate for these, but it was something that I did get my school creating, because while they weren't plastic free, if there was single-use plastic that they were using, they can then stuff them in the eco bricks, and it's something that they can do to get involved. But again, it's still plastic that's always going to be here on Earth, and we can't just keep on creating new plastic, stuff it in eco bricks and hope for the best. But you can look on the EcoBricks website for their collection points, and you can probably contact them to set up one near you if you don't have one. Again, I'm not entirely sure about how the collection points work, but I think what they try and do, instead of sending it all abroad where it might not get used, they try and encourage it to be used in a community, like Emily's plastic is used in her schools, in her community. I think they try to encourage that, so building benches and walls and play parks in your community instead of just shipping it around the world and kind of getting rid of your waste to someone else. Okay, the next question. Do you think that dried, composted, fresh or frozen fish should be reduced? And is the increase in fish consumption due to human choice or due to the reduction of quantities of terrestrial organisms? And could packaging made from dead algae? Emily, do you want to have a go at that one first, and then I'll...
Well, in answer to the first question about dried, composted, fresh or frozen, oh, that's a mouthful, frozen fish, couldn't say that 5 times really fast. I won't try and waffle you a decent answer because I don't have the kind of facts behind that. What I think is quite staggering, and I hope I get this right, is that we currently, pigs eat more tuna or eat more fish than sharks do, which is just utterly outrageous, you know. And we use, I think it's something like 3 kilograms of small fish to produce 1 kilogram of fish farmed salmon or something like that. I can't remember the ins and outs of it, but I think we need to kind of reshift our fishing economy to sustainable alternatives and to really incentivize sustainable practices. With the fishing industry, I will be the first person to admit that I got it wrong when I first started Beach Guardian, because, you know, about 50% of what we find on the beach, the plastic, is from the fishing industry. And, you know, from seeing that firsthand, my first instinct was to blame the industry. But then I spent a day on a boat going fishing with a local fisherman out of Padstow Harbour. And what I saw, instead of extractive and destructive means, was actually more conservation, if anything. This man literally woke up at ridiculous time in the morning, which is literally, I am not a morning person, so he's instantly got my respect for that, and then spends hours and hours of hard work out at sea, putting himself at risk. And I was watching him pull up pot after pot, and literally 80% of what he was catching was putting it back because it wasn't at the right size or you know, life stage or whatever. And I was watching all of this effort that he was putting in into a trade that he loves, a traditional that's been passed down from generation to generation. And he just cared for the environment. He needed it for his livelihood. And this guy literally studied a master's in marine biology. So these people usually are in the industry because they care about the ocean. Obviously, there is a select part of the industry that are very destructive. You know, there's big industrial boats out there where the fishermen don't actually touch a fish for weeks on end because it's all done mechanically. I wouldn't say, you know, boycott certain industries. I would say make sure you're putting your money into sustainable fisheries and supporting those that do it the right way. So literally the opposite of your question, I think, but that's kind of my kind of view on the fishing industry. In terms of dead algae, the kind of nature-based solutions, I love that that people are coming up with different initiatives of alternatives to plastics that can be used. Nature-based solutions, I think it's the way forward to, and it's going to be our real really key to tackle these issues. Do you have anything to add on that question about the industry?
No, I think you've covered that really well. Again, I think it's, you know, it's our choices that can make a difference. So yeah, spend money in the right way, as Emily said. Are either of you involved in blue carbon initiatives? No is the answer, but another way is very much focused at the mindset and increasing compassion and that sustainable mindset at any project. So we're not directly involved in that project, but I'd really, you know, I'm learning a lot about it at university, and it's so important. Emily, anything to add on that one?
I'm a big advocate for blue carbon ecosystems. I did a review on it at my master's at the University of Exeter, and it was literally the first time I'd really investigated it. So for those of you that are watching that aren't really sure what blue carbon is, it's essentially the carbon sequestered in coastal or marine ecosystems. So people kind of associate that with seagrass or mangroves, and maybe don't associate those environments with our local environment here. But actually we've got sand dunes and macroalgae and salt marshes that are incredibly critical in kind of storing carbon. And we've been working on a project to kind of restore our local sand dune system. This is one of the projects that I'm like, yes, I really love this project. I love all that we do, but this is a really great one where one of our local beaches, they've got these fantastic sand dunes, like meters high, really extensive, been there for generations. And because of climate change and more frequent and extreme weather events, these sand dune systems are eroding at an alarming rate. And not only do they provide a flood defense, a coastal buffer, but also they're storing all of that carbon. So what we've been doing every year for the last 3 years is taking people's Christmas trees, natural Christmas trees, not the plastic ones, after Christmas, and we've been burying them in the sand dunes, not to plant them, but we're not starting a Christmas tree farm, but the actual natural branched structure of the trees maintains the sand in place, so that when the wind blows, it gets captured in the Christmas trees and it builds the dunes up. So it's literally harnessing the power of nature. We haven't put anything anthropogenic in there. It's literally just tree branches. And so far we've saved 2,000 tons of sand. You can literally, like, if you see the pictures, the dune was like down here, there's a valley right between it, and now it's like this, just because there's like 200 Christmas trees buried in there. So again, nature-based solutions, and blue carbon itself is a nature-based solution. So all about the blue carbon.
Definitely. Awesome. Okay, so we've got a question here about the differences between Plymouth and Exeter University. So I think from my perspective, obviously Emily can tell you about Plymouth, but Exeter is quite a broad course. So because it's under a biosciences department, you're working alongside lots of other degrees, like conservation biology and zoology. So especially for first year, the modules are quite broad. And I think that, depending on you, that can be quite a good thing, because you can learn different aspects of biology as a whole, which could be really important in a career. And also I would say that the different research departments are important as well. So Plymouth has an absolutely great ocean acidification department and a great microplastics department. But Exeter also has a plastics department. They have, loads of different research areas. So I'd say that if you were choosing a university, if there's a particular subject that interests you, look at the modules, look at the researchers, look at the types of research the university does, and make a decision based on that, and then you'll feel for the university itself. Emily, anything to add there? Is that good?
I think you pretty much nailed that. There's literally nothing I could add to that to make it any better, so I won't even try. A great answer.
Okay, we are running out of time, but we've got a lot of questions left. So what we'll do is we'll answer as many as we can, and then if there are any that we don't answer, then we can always answer them on our social media, or you can feel free to give us an email. But we'll answer a few more. So work experience at Plymouth Uni, I just applied via their website. So just send in an application form. I don't think it was a very difficult process, but yeah, have a look on Plymouth University's website for that. And it was a really valuable week. But I'd say that if you do get on it, try and push yourself and, try and explore all the opportunities you can. So don't wait for someone to come up to you, go up to them and ask any questions that you do have, because I got onto some great projects through doing that I probably otherwise wouldn't have. What's your favorite marine animal, Emily?
Wow, this is actually a recent addition to my desk, and this is my favorite marine animal. This is my new mouse mat. This is I don't know how well you can see that. That is a Klungsinger's wrasse. That is my favorite animal on the planet. I have a tattoo of it. I love this fish so much. It's funny, this is my favorite fish. I've never done any research on it. I don't know anything about the biology, the ecology. I don't know anything about it. But when I was 8 years old and I went on holiday, and it was the first time that I'd gone scuba dive, well, I was snorkeling, my brother was scuba diving, I wasn't old enough. And I remember we were in Egypt, and like, some of you might have been to Egypt and had like these amazing hotels with like a house reef that's got this most dramatic drop off, and it's just absolutely stunning. Well, the hotel we went to wasn't like that at all, and it just had one like dead lump of coral at the end of the jetty. And it was really like, now I've seen beautiful colorful coral, I know how pants it was, but I was just obsessed. And I remember every day I would go out to this lump of coral and I would just sit there and I would just watch. And there was this one Klungzinger's wrasse that would just go in and out of this dead lump of coral all day. And I would watch it and I would pretend that it had this life and it would go to work and it had a job and it had a family. And I think that was it for me. It was that I like went home from that holiday and I made this whole book about all of the fish in the Red Sea and what they did and everything like that. So that fish I owe everything to. So that is my favorite marine creature. How about you?
Oh, it's a lovely story. I have had a lifelong obsession with sea slugs. Anyone who knows me well will know that I have created many paper sea slugs and decorated my room with them. I have one right here. So it's my beautiful paper sea slug called
I love it.
Robin. Yeah. I find them fascinating, and they can photosynthesize. One of the only animals that can photosynthesize. So yeah, they are my passion.
What was there was something in the news recently about a sea slug that can cut off its own head and regrow it.
I did not see that, but that's very cool.
I might be
illustrates why they are the best.
Yeah, I didn't actually read the full article, and I may have just kind of paraphrased that totally wrong. So yeah, but I agree, they are awesome.
Thank you. Okay, how did you find opportunities and become more well known? I'm not sure where to begin in becoming a conservationist. So I think from my perspective, sometimes don't wait for opportunities to come to you. You have to create them yourself. Obviously, if there are opportunities, then seize them. But there is no reason why you can't right now go and give a talk to your peers, set up a social media account, post whatever content interests you, go and email conservation organizations. I think that there is absolute infinite power in emailing. The amount of emails that I sent out when I was at school to organizations that I was interested in, just asking how I could be involved. Yeah, that's kind of my advice. Emily, anything to add?
Again, perfect advice. I don't really need to add anything. I think that's brilliant. But what I will say is my biggest piece of advice is that, yes, you should totally say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. Like, you never know who's in an audience, you never know who you're going to meet. Networking is amazing, and I think is kind of the key to success. It's not what you know, it's who you know, kind of thing. But on the flip side, and to completely juxtapose everything that I've just said, I think it's also important to learn when you should say no to something as well. And I don't mean you should kind of turn down opportunities, but you're in every right to kind of say, I have too much on my plate at the moment, but if you touch base with me again in a week, 2 weeks, then I'll be able to do it, and I'll be able to do it better and to give you more of my time. Like, getting the balance between work, life, research, volunteering, gaining experience is so hard, and I'm talking about it like I've mastered it. I absolutely have not, by no means like at all. I've not mastered it at all, but I think it's very, very important to make sure you know when you've got too much going on and when you should say no.
Yeah, definitely. This is an interesting question, and one that Another Way's been working on quite a lot, so I'll answer it and then Emily can add anything. When doing education and outreach work with communities, how do you balance the role of individual and community action with the need for more systemic change? So from another way's perspective and from my personal perspective, we definitely need systemic change, but I feel that that comes from us as individuals, because if people don't care and if people don't stand out, change their lives and influence everyone around them to change theirs too, then we're not going to get anywhere in this world. And I feel like we've waited too long for someone else to do this for us. It starts with us, and it starts right now. So I think that individual and community action is at the heart of everything for me. And I think that, you know, even if you're inspiring businesses to change, you're going to be targeting individuals, and you're going to be targeting their compassion for the environment. So for me, everything comes down to the compassion of an individual, and trying to ignite that compassion by just sharing our love for nature and for our oceans. Obviously, we need systemic change, but I feel like we can influence that as individuals. And if you choose to boycott palm oil, and if everyone on this planet choose to boycott palm oil, then we wouldn't be destroying our rainforests anymore. And that does seem a bit too good to be true, and perhaps it is, but that just shows what the power of one individual can do if everyone did that. So that's my take on it. Emily, anything to add to that?
I don't know if it's just me, and I'm sure everybody watching will feel exactly the same. Every time you talk, it literally makes me want to cry. Like, I was literally like, that is so powerful. It's so inspiring. And again, I totally agree. Like, my Beach Guardian and my own ethos is exactly the same as yours, in that, yes, I think a top-down approach is beneficial, but I do think that the power of an individual, particularly collaboratively with lots of other individuals, is exactly how we can change the world. It does start with you. I think there's this amazing quote, I use it every time I do a presentation, and it is, the worst thing that we can do for the environment is think that somebody else will fix it. Like, and I think that every single time I'm like walking down the road, and I'll be walking and I'll see like a plastic bottle that's been littered, and like, I don't know what it is, maybe it's just kind of human to kind of look at it and be like, oh, I'm having a bad day, someone else will pick it up. And every time I think that, I'm like, no, they won't. No one else is going to pick up that bottle, because everyone else is going to think exactly what I have just done, in that somebody else will do it, whether it be the council or whoever else they think whose responsibility it is. But the responsibility is ours. I love the saying, it's not my rubbish, but it is my home. And if everybody diffused responsibility onto someone else, nothing would get done. So if you're walking down the street and you see a plastic bottle, pick it up, because nobody else is going to do it. So it's all about the individual.
Awesome. Yeah, completely agree with that. And I think it's just so inspiring that you know, you've just created an organization because based on that ethos and that mindset, you know, if you don't pick up the plastic bottle, then no one else will. Okay, let's do 3 more questions and then we'll wrap it up, because I'm sure you've all got things to go to, but we will try and answer the rest of the questions on our social media, perhaps on our stories in the next few days. So one for Emily: how often do you beach clean, and do you feel overwhelmed by all the plastic that you collect?
I love this question. This is my favorite question, because the second bit about the overwhelming bit, because I think it's so important to talk about the kind of eco anxiety and the eco grief, and how to cope with just the ongoing washing up of plastic. You know, you go to do a beach clean, you clean a beach, and the next day on the next tide, it all comes back in again. And I know that beach cleaners and litter pickers, they develop this resilience, but yeah, there is very much an overwhelming kind of essence there. In terms of how much I beach clean, the community beach cleans with Beach Guardian, we actually had 1 beach clean a week organised for this whole year. Unfortunately, we can't do the group activities with obviously COVID restrictions. So for all of the dates that we'd organised those, I go down and on my daily walks, whether that be on the beach or just walking around Wadebridge where I live, always just picking up that plastic bottle or whatever it be, whatever you encounter, just make sure you've always got some anti-bac with you or something, and you can pick up the rubbish wherever you are, and it does make a huge difference. Like, that is what I love about the plastic pollution issue, is that I mean, like, for climate change, for example, when I was in school, I would be told that to kind of reduce my carbon footprint, I should turn off a light when I leave a room. Like, that was my kind of point to action. Whereas once you do that, you can't like see the impacts you're having. You can't see the ice cap that you're saving. But plastic pollution, you go and do a beach clean, or you go out on your daily walk and you're walking down the street and the area that you're walking in is covered in plastic. You do a beach clean or a litter pick and it's clean. Like, you can see the impact that you have had, and it does make a difference. You saw the slide of how much waste just a small community group has taken out of the environment. And yes, there's still plastic on the beach. I know there's plastic on the beach near me right now, but I also know that it's significantly less than what it would have been if we hadn't have done this. And like people say, the beaches are cleaner. Yes, our local beaches are cleaner, not because there's less plastic in the ocean. That's not true. There's, of course, more plastic in the ocean every single day. It's growing. But actually, what's making the beaches cleaner is that the community has come together. And every day when Beryl from Constantine goes and walks her dog, she'll fill up a poo bag of rubbish. And then somebody else goes down to have a game of football and they take some rubbish. And slowly, with everybody doing it, it does make a difference. So I feel way more hopeful than I do overwhelmed.
That's really great to hear. Thank you. And then, okay, I'm going to take this as the last question, because I think it illustrates how anyone, wherever you are and whoever you are, can get involved with both marine biology and conservation. Is it possible to study marine biology if you don't live near the sea? And would you have to relocate to a university near the coast? So as I mentioned earlier, I have never lived by the sea apart from being at university. I'm still passionate about the sea, and it still affects us all. As Emily said earlier, it creates our weather, it absorbs carbon, it creates a food source and livelihood. And it's fascinating. And if you're passionate about it, then you can study marine biology wherever you're from and wherever you live. But I would, most universities that do offer marine biology are near the coast. Kind of goes with the territory. But if you're happy to relocate, then yeah, definitely go for it. If you are passionate, then follow your dreams, I think, would be something that I'd like to end on. Okay, so thank you all so much for listening and joining us tonight. We've really enjoyed chatting to all of you. And I feel so inspired by collaborating with Emily and by hearing about all the great work that she's doing. And it's been lovely to talk to you all tonight.
Wait, so Amy, don't sign off. I thought you were gonna. I know you were gonna, like, we literally debated when we should cut it off, but I've just remembered we need to say the answer to the riddle.
We do.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was like, don't click end meeting. So the riddle was merely just to kind of warm up to get everybody ready for the evening. And actually, the whole riddle is really in light of the fact that it was International Women's Day yesterday. So to remind you of the riddle, it was, apologies, my doorbell has just gone, so you may hear my dog barking relentlessly in the background. But the riddle was, it was a man and his son, and they were driving in the car. There was an accident. The man died. The son goes to hospital. He's in hospital, about to die. He needs somebody to come in and kind of give him his life-saving surgery. And the surgeon walks in and says, I cannot operate on this boy because he is my son. Obviously, the father's just died, so how can the surgeon come in and say that? Now, when I heard this riddle, and I kind of tell everybody, and I feel it in myself, that I'm a feminist. But when I heard in this riddle, I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe it's a ghost. I was coming up with all of the different options it could possibly be other than the answer. And the answer is simply that the surgeon that walked in was, of course, his mum. It was a woman. So I would literally, in my head, go to every single nth degree of the answer, as far away from it being a woman as possible. I thought it was a ghost over a woman. Why in our heads can we not accept that people in high up positions can be women? So just what I want you to kind of take away from this, and to always remember and to kind of champion, not just on International Women's Day, but every day of the year, is if somebody has inspired you, if somebody has taught you something, if there's a mentor in your life or just somebody that supports you, make sure you give them gratification and showcase women for all of their achievements, because it is so important. So sorry to interrupt you, Amy, but I just remembered about the riddle, and I love the riddle. So
it was a very important message. So thank you, Emily. And yes, please do take that away with you tonight. Thank you so much for coming, and please do have a look on both of our social media to find out the rest of the answers to all your questions, and to also just keep up to date with all of our work. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much, and goodbye.